In the news tonight, shooting and bomb attacks claimed by Daesh kill at least 16 people in northern Iraq, days after the group's deadliest blast so far this year in the capital stirred public criticism of government security measures. The Italian Coast Guards rescue more than 800 migrants in one day off two boats heading from northern Africa to Italy in search of protection in Europe. And should women abide by a high heels dress code the same way a nurse or a policewoman must dress in a particular way? Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. Here are the details. Occupation forces dispersed a race by Palestinian cyclists held to mark Nakba Day in the West Bank. The cyclists had left the West Bank city of Ramallah to the controversial wall Israel built in the village of Berlin to commemorate Nakba or catastrophe. Palestinian Minister of Commission Against the Wall and Settlements, Walid Assaf, said the race was held to deliver a message to the next generations on the rights of Palestinians, the right to return. Israeli forces threw tear gas and stun grenades on the cyclists to disperse the race. Nakba, which falls on the 15th, is a day when Palestinians lost their homes in the 1948 war that resulted in the creation of Israel and the flight of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. Other demonstrations are planned in Jerusalem, the West Bank and Gaza on Sunday the 15th. Hezbollah deputy head Sheikh Naeem Qasim said results of the investigation into the assassination of a top commander would be concluded within a day and vowed to avenge his death. Hezbollah commander Mustafa Badruddin was killed in a huge explosion in Damascus, and the group said it was working to define the nature of the explosion and its cause and whether it was the result of an airstrike, a missile, or artillery. However, the group said it has a clear indication of who was behind the blast. Here's more.
He was the top commander for Lebanese Shiite group Hezbollah, 55-year-old Mustafa Badruddin, killed in Syria on May 10th, the group says, by an Israeli military strike on one of its bases near Damascus airport. Badruddin was one of 5 Hezbollah members indicted by the UN in the 2005 killing of Lebanese statesman Rafiq al-Hariri. But for years, he also masterminded military operations against Israel from Lebanon and overseas. More recently, the U.S. believes Badruddin was responsible for Hezbollah's military operations in Syria, where it's fighting alongside forces loyal to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and had placed the commander on its sanctions list. Hezbollah's Al-Manar TV showed Badruddin's family receiving condolences in a suburb of Beirut on Friday. His death is a major blow to the Iranian-backed organization, which has lost some 1,200 fighters in the Syrian conflict and at least 4 prominent figures since 2015.
Shooting and bomb attacks claimed by Daesh killed at least 16 people in northern Iraq, days after the group's deadliest blast so far this year in the capital stirred public criticism of government security measures. 3 gunmen opened fire with machine guns around midnight at a cafe in the predominantly Shiite Muslim town of Belat, killing 12 and wounding 25. 1 hour later, an assailant who had fled detonated his explosive vest at a nearby vegetable market after police and Shiite militia members cornered him. The blast killed 4 and critically wounded 2. Security forces were deployed throughout the town, fearing more attacks. The attack follows a 2-day wave of bombings in the capital, Baghdad, claimed by Daesh that left at least 80 people dead. And in the continued fight against terrorism, the United States and its allies staged a total of 21 strikes against Daesh in Iraq and Syria since yesterday in their latest round of daily attacks against the group. The combined joint task force said 14 strikes in Iraq hit targets near 10 cities including Mosul, Ramadi and Fallujah and were aimed at Daesh units, a mortar system, a machine gun and other weapons and fighting positions. While in Syria, 7 strikes near 5 cities hit tactical units, fighting positions and a bunker. The number of migrants arriving in Greece dropped 90% in April, according to the European Union Border Agency, a sign that an agreement with Turkey to control traffic between the two countries is working. However, migrants were shifting from the route to Greece to the central Mediterranean route. They are now choosing the much more dangerous route across the Mediterranean from northern Africa to Italy. Here's the story.
The same day the EU claims a 90% reduction in Greece migrant arrivals, a single mass migration the UN calls the largest of its kind in over a year. More than 800 migrants plucked from only 2 boats, brought into Sicily by Italy's Coast Guard after their rescue the day before from rusty fishing boats. UN spokesperson Carlotta Sami says they include minors as young as 12 traveling alone.
The route is very long, it's very risky, and these people, including many families with babies, have been adrift at high sea for many days, up to a week.
An EU deal with Turkey to control migrant traffic into Greece appears to be working. The EU's border agency says traffic into Italy was also recently down, although by just 13%. It says there's no sign migrants are simply avoiding the Turkey-Greece route by opting for the longer, more dangerous trek to Italy. But the Oslo-based Norwegian Refugee Council disputes that claim. It says this latest interception might be the first sign that refugees are choosing the Italian route. And if it continues, the EU deal has not only failed, but could result in more migrant deaths at sea.
U.S. House Speaker Paul Ryan and presumptive Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump concluded their highly anticipated meeting yesterday amid signals that the Republican Party will work to piece itself together after a fractious primary. Ryan and Trump emerged from their meeting declaring they had taken steps towards healing fissures in the party, but that differences remained. Party leaders are normally eager to rally around a presidential nominee to combine forces for the battle leading up to November's general election. But Ryan has withheld his endorsement of Trump out of concern over Trump's incendiary tone and policy ideas, which run counter to longtime Republican doctrine. Ryan has opposed Trump's proposals to temporarily ban Muslims from entering the U.S., deport illegal immigrants, and impose protectionist trade policies.
Right now, I think we had a very encouraging meeting. Look, it's no secret that Donald Trump and I have had our differences. We talked about those differences today. That's common knowledge. The question is, what is that we need to do to unify the Republican Party and all strains of conservative wings in the party? We had a very good and encouraging, productive conversation on just how to do that. It was important that we discussed our differences that we have, but it was also important that we discussed the core principles that tie us all together.
A London woman's petition asking the UK government to make it illegal for companies to require that women wear high heels to work garnered over 100,000 signatures as of today, meaning that Parliament now must consider debating the issue. The petition, set up on Tuesday by Nicola Thorpe, has received close to 122,000 signatures, which obligates the British government to respond, since all petitions that gain more than 10,000 signatures must be addressed and topics reaching 100,000 must be debated in Parliament. In December, Thorpe was sent home from her temporary job as a secretary for refusing to wear shoes with heels. She admitted that at first she was embarrassed by her stance until she felt that the issue went beyond being just a health issue and instead became about favoritism towards men in the workplace.
Employers are allowed to impose different dress codes for men and women, which is fair enough, as long as that dress code doesn't favour one of the sexes. Now, my point is, I think that by making women wear high heels, you're acting favourably towards men, because their footwear doesn't affect their posture, their ability to move. It doesn't create long-term health problems.
The world's oldest living person, Susanna Mushet Jones, died in New York at the age of 116. Jones, who was born in the southern U.S. state of Alabama in 1899, was the daughter of sharecroppers and granddaughter of slaves. Jones had attributed her longevity to lots of sleep and that she had never smoked or drank alcohol. With Jones' death, Emma Morano Martinuzzi, a 116-year-old woman in Italy, is now the oldest living person. Swedish striker Zlatan Ibrahimovic will be playing his last game for Paris Saint-Germain tomorrow in the cup final against Marseille. Ibrahimovic today announced on his Twitter account that he would leave PSG, saying, "I came like a king, left like a legend." The 34-year-old has been with PSG for 4 years, during which he played an integral part in turning the club into a force to reckon with on the European stage. Earlier in the season, Ibrahimovic became the club's top goal scorer in its history. Chelsea captain John Terry has been offered a new one-year contract with the club. The former England defender is out of contract at the end of the season and earlier this year said he expected to leave. At a news conference, Chelsea interim manager Guus Hiddink said Terry was considering the offer. 35-year-old Terry made his debut for his only club in 1998 and has played more than 700 games for the West London side. Chelsea are preparing for the final Premier League match at home to champions Leicester City on Sunday. And finally, it continues to be pleasant tonight with light winds. As of tomorrow, a heat wave is expected to take effect, raising temperatures 6 to 7 degrees above seasonal average this time of year. Therefore, it will be hot in most parts of the country, and the winds northwesterly moderate, stirring dust in the desert regions. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect an extremely hot day tomorrow, with temperatures reaching almost 40 degrees Celsius, while winds will be northerly moderate and the seas calm. Here now to look at temperatures forecast for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, here's a reminder of the day's top stories. Shooting and bomb attacks claimed by Daesh kill at least 16 people in northern Iraq. Days after the group's deadliest blast so far this year in the capital stirred public criticism of government security measures. The Italian Coast Guards rescue more than 800 migrants in one day from 2 boats heading from northern Africa to Italy in search of protection in Europe. And should women abide by a high heels dress code the same way a nurse or a policewoman must dress in a particular way? And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the news. I'm Alia Tuqan. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.